Fantastic. So thank you very much for uh, having me here today. It is a great honor to be part of this amazing lineup of presenters. Uh, and I'm no, I'm truly honored, and it's truly a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to talk about this. The main idea of my participation today is to talk about values and and the importance of infusing uh, uh, values throughout our curricula, particularly when teaching young learners and teens. So I don't know if I'm doing something wrong here, but I cannot see my presentation on screen. So if you guys,
Yeah, I didn't get any slides at all. That's why.
say that again.
I didn't receive any slides to upload for you.
Oh, I did send them. That is
Uh,
that's a bit odd, but don't worry. I'll
okay,
then.
sorry about that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So the idea then is to talk about values and to um, try to discuss a bit on the importance of values when teaching young learners and teens English as a foreign or second language. And I decided to talk about this topic um, based on a very recent and very painful event that we went through and we were shocked by a few weeks ago here in Mexico, in which um, in a very unfortunate lineup of events, a young guy, a sixth grader, came to school with two guns, uh, opened fire all of a sudden, and killed his English teacher, and wounded a, a dozen of students, and then took his own life. Um, that is an event that's been uh, traumatizing the entire English language teaching community in Mexico. But most importantly, I think it has made us thought on the importance of infusing, enriching our practice as language teachers with a solid values program. And that is the reason why I started researching on the topic of values and the importance and the need of integrating values into the young learners' teaching of English. And so the first thing I would like to discuss with you, if you may, is a definition of what values actually are. I started looking for uh, several different sources of information and definitions for values, and I came across a definition on a dictionary actually that I happen to use on my everyday practice that says that values are a person's principles or standards of behavior, one judgment of what is important in life. And that definition in itself got me, because when you start thinking of values as uh, the principles or standards of your behavior, you start understanding the importance of them and the need for enriching our practice with values. Values at the end, as this definition read, are one's judgment of what is important in life. So talking about our kids, about what's important in life, is of extreme, of immediate urgency nowadays. Another definition that I found on Ethics Sage is that values are a basic and fundamental set of beliefs that guide or motivate attitudes and actions. So if we're talking about attitudes and talking about actions, and we're helping our young learners as language teachers to model their attitudes and actions for life, values are essential as they help us determine what is important to us, as they describe the personal qualities we choose to embody to guide our actions. At the end, values are the sort of rules, if you may, that help us define the kind of person we want to be, the manner in which we treat ourselves and others, and our interaction with the world around us. And I guess one of the best definitions that I found for values is that values provide the general guidelines for conduct. So why are they important? why do I feel that values are so important in English language teaching? Where to begin with, our practice um, has to do with providing students with tools to communicate using the most popular, the most global language in this planet. English is a global language. English is the language of the world. And so that means that the chances our students have for, our kids, our teens have for using English to communicate with people from other cultures, other ethnical backgrounds, other economic backgrounds, other educational backgrounds is huge. Through English, they can reach people from many different sources, from many different backgrounds, and so the importance of using uh, uh, of making them aware of the need for developing tolerance, respect, appreciation of diversity, cultural differences and similarities is huge. As English is the most global language of this planet, values become an essential tool for them to practice the language to a higher extent. So, um, what sort of values um, can we relate to, or can we integrate into um, the practice of our everyday teaching of English? What global values are related to the typical topics that we teach to children and teens? For example, I'm thinking about typical teaching units on textbooks or any sort of curricula for teaching young learners. There's always a unit on toys, there's always a unit on animals, or on food, or on family, or teaching students vocabulary about items of clothing. Those are the regular lexical sets, for example, or even grammatical sets we teach kids and teens. Why not infusing this practice with teaching values? For example, let's say we're teaching our students vocabulary, or we're teaching them a unit on toys. How about enriching that practice with the teaching of a value that has to do with sharing, and having kids think about or practice what toys do they share with their friends. And so through that, they're practicing the actual language item that it's key target language for that unit. But at the same time, you're helping them become aware of a value that it's of essential practice in our times, which is sharing. Um, and so in that same line of thought, let's say, for example, that you're teaching a unit on food. And so as part of that unit, you teach your students to, eat good food. And which is an important value nowadays. Eating fruits and vegetables, or drinking enough water, and having them think, having them discuss with partners, having them share ideas on, for example, what do you eat and drink to stay healthy, as a value that goes alongside with the key target language of that specific unit. Or as I was mentioning before, let's say you're teaching a unit on items of clothing, and you enrich that practice with a value that has to do with taking good care of your clothes, for example, and showing them the importance of putting their clothes away, and asking them questions that make them think on things like, do you take care of your clothes? What sort of things you do in order to take good care of your items of clothing, and things like that, that are at that basic level, at that basic cognitive and linguistic level of our kids. They're triggering the appreciation of a value and the development of that value. On that same line of thought, for example, if you're teaching a unit on animals, how about enriching that practice with a value that has to do with being good to animals, or giving your pets food and water? What do you do in order to, take good care of your pets, and things like that? Or, talking about loving your family, working and playing together, etc., etc. So the question is, what values could I include in my ELT lesson? And I guess the answer for that question has to do with knowing your program, getting familiar with your curricula, and trying to come up with a line of or with a list of values that you think are important for your students' development as human beings. So, for example, the sort of values that I always recommend teachers including as part of their core teaching practice are tolerance, acceptance, inclusion, friendship, respect, tidiness, compliance, responsibility, care for the environment, resilience, etc., etc. And so the idea is that as part of the everyday teaching of the language, alongside with that, you include a practice on values that would resonate and would help your kids become better global citizens as part of their human development. And I would like to finish with a quote by Frederick Madnam that reads, "Without values, children have no sense of purpose and clarity. Not to mention, their ability to think clear and straight will be distorted. By fostering an environment where core values are a focal point, it enables students to logically grapple with life and encourages healthy brain development and growth." So I urge you to integrate values into your practice of teaching English to young learners and teens. Thank you very much.
Thank you